Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. It's a Thursday afternoon. Just hanging
Yeah,
out.
just hanging out. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm Myra, co-founder of B3 Media Solutions, and I'm joined here with.
Farika Phillips Bell, also co founder of B3 Media Solutions.
So thank you for joining us. Today, we're talking about how social media insights can inform your brand. But before we get started with that, we always like to talk about what's trending, what's new in social. And so, a new announcement by Instagram. Instagram will now enable all users to tag products in feed posts. And this feature used to be only available for content creators, but now all users can do this. So basically, this means it's potentially a big boost for brands in the app, so everybody can tag them. What do you,
Well, I
I think
think
it's
that it's
pretty
even
exciting.
better for small businesses, though, right? Because now, if you have people that love your product or are passionate about your service, all they have to do is tag you as a brand, and you can use that UGC in your content calendar and your editorial calendar.
And when I first heard about this update, I'm like, wow, that kind of might seem like a lot of work for somebody to have to handle, like the community
Yeah.
manager, to be able to see all this. Now everybody can tag your brand, but then I was like, actually, that might make things a little bit easier, especially if you're a brand that's working with influencers or is considering working with influencers. So, I mean, for that information just to appear in your inbox, it kind of saves you the step of having to search for them, right?
It actually does because it has a separate tab that you can then access to see those tags. And then if you still work with influencers, you'll be able to actually see those as well. So there'll be a separate tab for the influencers and then one for, regular consumers that maybe just love your brand and want to interact and engage with you. So
Yeah. So
I
I
thought
think
it was great.
yeah, this is a good one. I can't wait to see it in action.
I know.
But again, like today, we're here to talk about something else. But even before that, Barika, I was looking back at our live streams and I was like, you know what? We never really covered who B3 is, what it is that we do. So I thought it'd be important to just kind of get into that.
Yeah, I
So
think that's a great idea.
let's talk about us. So let's put up our slides and just talk about a little bit about B3. So first of all, B3 Media Solutions is not a platform or a tool service. We use them. We're an agency designed to support you. And we focus on social listening, monitoring, research, and analytics. We use AI tools to provide that real human intelligence reporting for our clients. Our niche is social media research. And our next slide, I wanted to go into some of what we do best, and that is our services. What we do best is real-time social media monitoring, listening, and analytics reporting. We report on crisis and we develop digital strategies. This is just some of the things that we do best. Our website lists so many other things that we can do. So please check out our website, B3 Media Solutions, so you can understand how we can help your brand. And I also wanted to share the next slide, my favorite slide, is an image of our team. So this is the power behind B3 Media Solutions. So when you work with us, this is who you're working with, a wonderful team of people, and I appreciate them so much. We work with airline, CPG, entertainment, transportation, hospitality, and travel, food and beverage, and beauty industries, just to name a few. So, what we're here today to talk about is how social media insights can help inform your brand. And I thought this was a really important topic to cover because we often get the question from clients seeking our services. They often ask us why their brand should care about social media analytics. Why should they care about what's going on social? And another question we get is, how do we measure success for our clients? So That is all answered with insights that we glean from our social media listening and social media reporting. It's all about the insights. If we go to the next slide, we're going to talk about what is a social media insight. And I'll pitch it over to Barika to cover that.
Yeah, so the way that we define a social media insight is any type of consumer insight that can be gleaned from a social network. If you go back to the previous slide, a social insight is any kind of consumer insight that can be gleaned from social networks that we find, could be forums, could be news comments, but ideally it's obtained by observing and analyzing social conversations and analytics about a brand, a competitor, products, or even an unmet need or problem. So without social and media analytics, you can't even monitor or evaluate the effectiveness of your content or your campaigns, right? And there's no way that you'd be able to achieve any objectives if you don't use analytics. So if you can see how things resonate with your audience, whether it be a campaign or your content, this is what we call a social insight that brands are using to be able to push the needle. And you can use social media insights across a number of different ways. Myra, how do you use it most frequently?
So, one of the ways we use social media insights is to help brands that we work with reach out to a bigger audience. Because when we are able to give the brands insights about what is resonating with a particular audience, they can reach out to that particular audience and thus grow it. They can also understand their consumers' needs and wants by listening to conversations that are happening that include their brand. And they also can help improve user engagement. So we have a slide on the types of things that social media insights can help. And it's also very impactful with customer care and customer service. You know,
Definitely.
it's often the first place that people now go to when they want to talk to a brand. It's on their social page. And one of the ways we've also been able to help brands with insights is boost brand loyalty. And one of the ways we do that is analyzing and recommending influencers for brands to work with, because when people see influencers talking about a brand, it actually creates um, this community around that influencer, and they get engaged with the brand that they're talking about.
You know, Myra, I was thinking there was some additional things too that you didn't bring up, but I thought were really important as far as how social media insights help a brand, but also understanding what is the most effective social platform that you can use to market your brand. That is a very good way to really understand, like, should I be using Pinterest or should I be using Instagram? Should I incorporate TikTok or should I really focus in on LinkedIn? So, which are the effective social platform channels that you should use? Also, competitive benchmarking. We did this a ton with our clients, just looking at what their competitors are doing, how they're doing their content, and gleaning insights for ways that we could recommend to our clients how they could be doing things better that may resonate with their audiences. And then the last thing I think that we do a lot of is campaign performance. So really focusing on how well a campaign that you may have put out there in social is performing. And what are the things that you can use from that campaign to make it even stronger? Or if you're going to do a different campaign, how can you get increase your results so that it just performs even better than the previous campaign?
And you know, in addition to that, I did want to add something else, because social media insights really just helps so many aspects of a company and an organization. But also, I think it's really critical and helpful for brands or organizations trying to launch a product, or just trying to launch their brands. I think it would be so helpful to do a social media audit, competitive audit of the landscape before you even launch your marketing campaign. Very
Yeah,
critical.
that's a great idea, Myra. I think a lot of small businesses really underutilize the research that they can do on social around their industry, their products, or their service. So I love that point.
So we really wanted to talk about how social media insights can help a brand. And to help answer those questions that I posed earlier, why should my brand care about social listening and analytics, or how can a brand use social insights? We thought it would be most helpful to take you guys through some of our own case studies and just share what we have been able to do with social listening for some of the clients that we work with. So we wanted to just go into that.
I love it. So let's pull up our first case study. So we worked with a rideshare company and helping to understand on a monthly basis really what is going on, whether it be around the drivers, whether it be around the consumers. And in our regular monthly listening, we really noticed that there was an uptick in safety conversations. And you may be familiar with that. Like there was a point where people were getting robbed, women were being kidnapped and hurt. And so one of the things that we were tasked with was really trying to understand how widespread that conversation was and understanding what women were experiencing, whether they were drivers or the actual riders. And through listening, we were able to identify a number of the key issues that were hurting the brand in sentiment, as well as just eroding their overall reputation. So we decided to create themes within social listening, filtering it by gender, obviously, and understanding what those different violations and issues were. And then we were able to turn that over to the brand, and they could come up with numerous, and some of the suggestions were actually things that the consumers were suggesting themselves that the brands do. So the rideshare company decided to create a number of comprehensive safety measures that they've now put in place, and some of you may be familiar with them, that help passengers and drivers remain safe on the platform. And I know my favorite one that they rolled out was being able to hide my address from the driver, because I think that as a woman, it's a safety concern. So it definitely was something that we were able to use social listening for in order to ensure that they were making sure that they were keeping their customers safe. So now let's do the next one.
So, yes, social listening can also help brands understand their followers and consumers better, which allow them to nurture authentic relationships. So that is all around audience analysis. If you put the next slide up, we can, through social listening, can find out what it is a particular audience engages with. You know, sometimes a brand will find can be a little too formal, not very personal. Maybe they post content that's just about events, you know, just not being very engaging. But by performing social listening month over month, you're able to really uncover some personality traits of an audience. And that's through the process of audience analysis, where we segment an audience and dive deep into what is it they're talking about, what are things are they interested in, what are they sharing, what are they engaging with. So when we're able to do that, we're able to identify specific like emojis or hashtags or just the conversation tone of a particular fan base. And so when you have that information, when you're armed with that information, you as a brand, you can jump into a conversation and make a genuine connection. And the rewards can be very, very positive, as we have seen with Ticketmaster nurturing authentic relationships.
Very cool. Well, Myra, I think the next one, the next case study is really all around analytics. And we said that was another opportunity for brands to use data to be able to make informed decisions about what they want to do with their brand. So on the next slide, if we can pull that up, we worked with an automotive company to be able to understand what was going on with their social landscape. They really needed an audit to be able to look through all of their social channels plus competitor channels to see what was working and what wasn't. Was the content working? Was the time of day working? Were the descriptions that they included in their social handles working? So through our audit and our fluency with both listening and analytics, we were able to create a customized social landscape brand audit complete with the social, a strength, weaknesses, and opportunities and threat analysis, and really provide them with detailed insights around their competitive landscape. Then we were able to take that to the partner agency that we work with to help them speak to the client in an informed standpoint, to be able to make data-driven decisions on how to rebrand and market an auto center. They were so they were so blown away by kind of the insights and the data that they not only took all of those recommendations, but have since become number one in their category for their competitors, just by looking at the data and being data focused when they were trying to rebrand their auto center.
Power of social insights right there.
Very social. Yep.
Very social. So we wanted to also talk about how social insights can be used around influencer analysis in automotive. So we have our next slide that we want to show is when a brand is considering using an influencer or currently uses influencers, you can use all the analytics information that you get from tools, and you can also listen to identify which ones that you think will be the most impactful before you hire them. But when you work with them, you also need to measure after the campaign which influencers basically gave you the biggest bang for your buck. So the way you do that is not only looking at the metrics of like who got the most likes and comments and shares or information around the post, but you also want to look at engagement rates before the campaign and after the campaign. So there's really no AI tool that can do that task. That is where you join a team like us. We're the ones going through the tools, looking at the metrics, but we also do something called conversation analysis, where we'll look at all of the comments from a post from a particular campaign, and we can tell you which influencer had the audience that was most not only engaged with their content, but talk about your product. So that's something that brands can really utilize to understand what is working well for their campaigns, what they want to replicate, and maybe what partnerships maybe they don't want to continue with because it just wasn't really that fruitful. So that's a very valuable insight that brands can get from social listening and social analytics on influencer partnerships. One of the other things that I think is really important is trying to understand whether or not an influencer that you're working with is reaching a new audience for your brand or product. And that is something, again, that you have to dive deep. You have to segment and see, like, how is the conversation shifting? Is the gender shifting? The age group of the conversation and age groups having that conversation, is that shifting? Is it more male, more female? So that requires pre and post analysis. And again, that's nothing AI can do. That's when you need the human element, the human analysis around the tools to give that answer. And that's what we do best. That's our sweet spot, I would say.
And I think another opportunity that we've used is, we have a question. Somebody asked, Ms. Alana Daniels, as a small business owner with numerous products, should we have multiple social accounts for each product or just one main account for all products? I think that's a really awesome question because it really does require some data and analytics to kind of analyze, like, what are your competitors doing? Also, it really doesn't make sense to do it just because your competitors are doing. You really have to take into account, do you have the resources to have and operate multiple accounts? Can you create content for all of these multiple accounts? Do you have a strategy? Because there should be a strategy for each of the different accounts. So if you're able to have the resources to develop the content and the overall strategy for these accounts, and they serve a real purpose, a need, then absolutely it makes sense. But that does, as I said earlier, I really think that it really requires us to kind of like dig into like what's happening, doing a social landscape audit, and really figuring out what will be the benefit versus the con of having multiple accounts for your product or service. Hope that answers your question. So I think the last case study that we wanted to go over is really just around showcasing content analysis and just overall brand health monitoring. So if you could go to the next slide, one of the clients that we worked with, GoGuardian, they really didn't have a social listening and monitoring program. So we worked with them to actually set this up and understand their target audience month to month, as well as their competitive set. They were really wanting to increase brand sentiment, overall engagement, and understand how they could use listening to inform their content strategy. So we immediately took action. This was actually a really, really fun project where we looked at kind of like past performance as well as their competitors, really to see how they were engaging with their consumers and really benchmarking how their content performed versus the competitors' content. And after 6 months, GoGuardian became number one within their competitive set. Now, it does take time to do that, but it was focused effort on helping them to create content that was being engaged with, as well as finding out who are those teachers, who are those district people that loved their product, talked about them all the time, and really getting them active, focused, and engaged to talk more about them on social. And they were able to see their audience growth, as well as just like 40% more net follower growth, as well as 2 times more awareness than their closest competitor. So like kudos to the work being done there. But that was definitely an opportunity for us to kind of step in and help them meet those KPIs that they had set out for.
That's an awesome one. I really like that one. And it all started with the fact that they just wanted to start listening and understand what was going on. And that kind of segues into our very last slide of helping brands just keeping a finger on the pulse. So what social listening does is just help your organization understand the landscape, what's going on, not just with your brand, but your competitive set. And what oftentimes happens is clients come to us because social data can be overwhelming. It is big data. They're confused on like what data is important. What should we look at? Is it mentions? Is it reach? Is it potential impressions? Is it engagements? So how we come in to help is we go in, we develop a report, and we try to simplify it as much as possible and create a one pager, a social snapshot that just also looks at your brand and your competitor's brand in a visually digestible format. You know, we create this one page report that can be shared across the organization to help keep your executive teams informed. But also what it does is it gets other teams curious and it gets them asking questions like, well, what about this section of sports and NFL, or what about brands that we're interested in looking at, like what's going on over there. So what it does is it informs the whole organization, and they become curious, and then the ad hoc requests start coming in, where they're trying to answer a particular business question or solve something. So social listening and social analytics and insights, it's really a great way to keep your organization informed what's going on month over month.
Absolutely. I really like that data visualization. It was really nice.
Thank you. Oh, I designed it myself.
Yeah.
With the help of my team, of course.
Absolutely. Oh, you have a question, Myra?
Should small businesses use influencers, and how do we find them? I don't know if you missed the intro of what we were talking about. Instagram just launched a new feature where people can start tagging brands. So you can actually find them. I haven't seen the layout yet, but you can find them easily when they tag your brand. But it's definitely something you should explore. Um, a lot of brands are using them, and it's a great way to expose your brand to a new audience. A lot of the big brands that we work with, they all use them. So it's been a proven way to amplify your campaign. It's been a proven way to capture a new audience, and it's also proven to create brand loyalty, because when people who follow a particular influencer see the influencer talking about your product, service, or brand, they are very connected to that influencer. And if they are somewhat familiar with their brand, it almost creates some kind of brand loyalty that we've seen. It makes them like you even more. Do
Yeah.
you have anything to add to that, Barika?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that finding influencers, it's going to be really dependent on what your social channels are. Like, are you more active on TikTok? Like, is your product or service geared towards Gen Z, millennials? There's all kinds of influencers that are out there. Maybe it's a subject matter expert that you might want to contract. So I think absolutely yes, if you're a small business, if you have influencers that you can use even within your own organization, like employee ambassadors are influencers that can help. So absolutely, you should be using them and finding them. Just give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help you. But there are a number of tools that are available that businesses are able to contract with and find influencers that can run the gamut from LGBTQ all the way to lifestyle, travel, mom bloggers. There's all kinds of influencers that you can contract with, and you can find the right one.
Yeah, but Brika, you said the right thing. We have access to these tools that can help you find these influencers faster, because just trying to do it natively could be very
It's
time consuming. So
it is time consuming. Yes, absolutely.
it can be done.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
Myra, I mean, we've had a wonderful conversation today. I think it's best if we go to the last slide. I just want to summarize everything that we've learned here when it comes to using social media data for your business insights. It really comes down to keeping it simple, right? These five questions, I think, really encapsulate everything that we've talked about and given away with our case studies. One is, what does my target audience care about? What do they care about? What are they interested in? How do my consumers feel about my brand? That's your sentiment. That's understanding if they like you or they don't and why. Really getting into how they're using your product or your service. And you might find new ways that people are using your product or service that you didn't know about that you could then use as marketing message. How did your campaign perform? Definitely want to always make sure that you are benchmarking and incorporating those analytics so that you can understand if your campaign hit or miss what you were trying to accomplish. And then lastly, how does your brand stack up to the competition? Always keeping an eye on those competitors, knowing what they're doing, knowing the type of content that they are sharing, and knowing how well or how ahead or behind your brand may be of your competitive set. I think that was all, right?
Yes, you kept it simple.
Try
I
to.
just want to say thank you to everybody. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And oh, we have another question. We have new social accounts for our product line. So how do we ensure everyone's? Well, you know what? We're like out of time, but we can answer that question. Pop Research. I will reach out to you, or you can reach out to us. We're available on all the platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We are also offering a 30-minute consultation for enterprise level brands. We want to thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next live stream.
See you guys later. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Oh.